She was a paramedic on lunch break when she saw the car crash. Armed guards blocked everyone back, but she heard someone dying inside. She smashed the window, pulled out an elderly woman, saving the life of a Mafia boss's mother. Now the hospital wants to fire her, and he's decided her courage deserves a reward. Maria Alvarez had exactly 12 minutes left of her lunch break when she saw the black sedan jump the curb. She was sitting on a concrete bench outside Chicago Memorial Hospital, eating a gas station sandwich and trying not to think about the electricity bill. The car appeared in her peripheral vision first, a sleek Mercedes, the kind that cost more than she'd make in 5 years. It lurched across 2 lanes of traffic, horn blaring, then mounted the sidewalk with a sickening crunch of metal on concrete. People scattered. A woman dropped her coffee. The sedan rolled forward another 10 feet before stopping, engine still running, hazard lights blinking like a panicked heartbeat. Maria was on her feet before she realized she'd moved. 2 men erupted from the front doors, big guys in dark suits, the kind who spent more time in gyms than offices. One had a hand inside his jacket. The other was already shouting, "Stay back. Everyone stay back." They positioned themselves on either side of the rear passenger door, creating a wall of muscle and menace. The taller one swept his arm in a wide arc, herding the gathering crowd away from the vehicle. Maria took 3 steps forward. "I said stay back." The shorter guard's hand emerged from his jacket, not holding a weapon, but the threat was clear. She ignored him. Her eyes were locked on the rear window, tinted so dark it was almost black, but not quite. Through the glass, she could see movement. Erratic. Desperate. Someone was in trouble. "Ma'am, you need to move." "I'm a paramedic," Maria's voice cut through his protest like a scalpel. "There's someone hurt in that car. The situation is under control." "Does it look under control?" She gestured at the sedan, at the shattered side mirror, at the way the whole vehicle sat crooked on the curb. "Your driver just crashed into a sidewalk in front of a hospital." The guards exchanged a glance. The tall one touched his ear, probably had an earpiece, probably receiving orders. But orders took time, and time was something Maria's training had taught her to measure in seconds, not minutes. Through the window, she saw the figure slump forward. That made her decision. The ambulance bay was 30 feet away. Maria sprinted toward it, her sneakers slapping against hot concrete. Behind her, the guards were shouting again, but she wasn't listening anymore. She yanked open the side door of the nearest ambulance, thankfully unlocked, and grabbed the trauma bag from its mount. Heavy. Good. She ran back, the bag's weight pulling at her shoulder. The guards had moved to intercept her, but she was faster, smaller, more desperate. She ducked under the tall one's reaching arm and brought the bag down hard against the rear passenger window. The glass spiderwebbed, but didn't break. "Are you insane? You can't." Maria swung again. This time the window exploded inward, safety glass cascading across black leather seats in a glittering waterfall. She dropped the bag and reached through the jagged opening, her fingers finding the door lock. It clicked. The door swung open, and she saw her. An elderly woman, maybe 70, maybe older, dressed in clothes that probably cost more than Maria's car. Her skin was gray, lips tinged blue. Her hand clutched at her chest, fingers curled like claws. Her eyes were open but unfocused, rolling back. Cardiac arrest. Textbook presentation. "Help me get her out." Maria reached in, supporting the woman's head. The guards hadn't moved. They stood frozen, caught between training and confusion. "Now." Maria's command voice, the one she used in the back of ambulances when people were dying and there was no time for debate. "You want her to die in this car? Help me." That broke the spell. The tall guard moved forward, surprisingly gentle as he helped Maria ease the woman out of the sedan and onto the sidewalk. Maria was already positioning her, tilting her head back, checking her airway. No pulse. "Call 911, she shouted to no one in particular. Someone in the crowd must have had a phone. Tell them we have a woman in cardiac arrest outside Chicago Memorial, main entrance. Her hands moved on autopilot, years of training compressing into muscle memory. 30 compressions, hard and fast, the heel of her palm centered on the woman's sternum. The elderly woman's ribs flexed under her hands. She pushed harder. Too gentle, and you weren't doing anything. Break a rib to save a life, that was the trade. Come on, Maria muttered. Come on, stay with me. The woman's designer blouse bunched under Maria's hands. A pearl necklace, real pearls, the kind that came from actual oysters, swung with each compression. 2 breaths, Maria said, more to herself than anyone else. She tilted the woman's head back, pinched her nose, and breathed into her mouth. Once. Twice. Back to compressions. 15, 16, 17. Somewhere in the background, sirens wailed. Getting closer. 28, 29, 30. She was dimly aware of the crowd now. Dozens of people, phones out, recording. The guards standing uselessly nearby. A security officer from the hospital running across the plaza. None of it mattered. All that mattered was the woman under her hands and the rhythm of compressions and breaths. Come on, Maria said again. Don't you dare die on me. And then a miracle. The woman gasped. Her chest rose independently. Her eyes fluttered. Maria felt for a pulse. There. Weak and thready, but there. That's it. That's it, you're okay. Stay with me. The hospital's emergency team burst onto the scene. A stretcher, real equipment, people who got paid a lot more than Maria did. She stepped back, hands still shaking with adrenaline, and watched them load the woman onto the gurney. Only then did Maria notice her own hands, bleeding from where the safety glass had cut her. The front of her scrubs was soaked with sweat. And the 2 guards were staring at her with expressions she couldn't quite read. Not gratitude. Not anger. Fear. The tall one touched his ear again, listened, then looked at Maria with something that might have been respect or might have been pity. You have no idea what you just did, he said quietly. Then they followed the stretcher inside, leaving Maria alone with the crowd, the broken car, and the creeping sense that her 12-minute lunch break had just changed her life forever. Maria made it back inside the hospital before her hands started shaking for real. She headed straight for the staff bathroom, locked herself in a stall, and let out a breath she didn't know she'd been holding. Her reflection in the mirror looked like someone else, wild-eyed, hair escaping from her ponytail, glass dust still clinging to her scrubs. She washed her hands. The cuts weren't deep, just superficial scratches. Nothing that needed stitches. She was drying them with paper towels when her phone buzzed. Report to Davidson's office immediately. Karen Freeman. Her supervisor. This couldn't be good. Maria's stomach dropped. She checked the time. Her lunch break was over anyway. She ditched the paper towels and headed for the administrative wing, each step feeling heavier than the last. Davidson's office was on the 3rd floor, glass-walled and sterile. Maria could see him through the window before she even knocked, a thin man in his 50s, sitting behind a desk that was too big for him, already frowning at his computer screen. Karen Freeman stood beside him, arms crossed. She was a good supervisor most days, fair and practical. But her expression right now was pure ice. Sit down, Maria, Davidson said without looking up. Maria sat. The chair was uncomfortable, probably by design. Davidson finally looked at her, and his frown deepened. Do you want to explain to me what happened outside 20 minutes ago? A woman was having a heart attack. I performed CPR. She's alive. You assaulted a private vehicle. I broke a window. You interfered in a high-risk security situation without authorization or backup. Davidson's voice was flat, reciting from some invisible script. You abandoned your post during duty hours. I was on lunch break. You removed hospital equipment without permission. You engaged with armed private security personnel. And you did all of this in full view of approximately 50 witnesses, and at least 24 camera phones. He turned his monitor toward her. On the screen was a video, shaky, shot from a phone, but clear enough. Maria swinging the trauma bag. Glass shattering. The guards shouting. It had already been posted online. The view count was climbing. That woman would be dead if I hadn't acted, Maria said quietly. That woman, Freeman interjected, her voice tight, is connected to some very dangerous people. The kind of people who have lawyers on speed dial and don't appreciate unsolicited interventions. She was dying. You don't know who she is, do you? Davidson pulled out a folder, slid a printed photo across the desk. It showed the elderly woman from the car, conscious now, sitting up in a hospital bed, surrounded by men in suits. That's Rosa Vitale. Her son is Lorenzo Vitale. The name meant nothing to Maria. Freeman sighed. Lorenzo Vitale runs half the organized crime in Chicago. And you just smashed your way into his mother's car without permission. The room tilted slightly. Maria gripped the arms of her chair. We've already received 3 phone calls from their legal team, Davidson continued. They want to know who broke their car window. They want to know what authority you had to touch Mrs. Vitale. They want copies of your credentials, your employment history, everything. I saved her life, Maria repeated, but her voice sounded smaller now. You broke protocol. Davidson opened another folder, this one thicker. Hospital Policy Section 47B states that in situations involving armed security or potential danger, staff must defer to proper authorities and wait for backup. You didn't wait. You didn't call for backup. You acted alone. There was no time. That's not for you to decide. He pulled out a form, already half filled with her name and employee number. I'm placing you on immediate administrative suspension, pending a full investigation. The word suspension hit like a punch. You're suspending me for saving someone's life. I'm suspending you for violating safety protocols that exist to protect you and this hospital. Davidson's voice softened slightly, but not enough. Maria, I get it. You did what you thought was right. But the hospital has liability issues. Insurance issues. And now we have the Vitale family threatening legal action because you put your hands on their matriarch without consent. She couldn't consent. She was unconscious. Which is exactly the kind of argument lawyers love to tear apart. Freeman stepped forward, her expression less angry now, more resigned. Look, I call the union. Ted Kowalski is on his way. Don't say anything else until he gets here. As if on cue, there was a knock. Ted Kowalski entered, 50-something, perpetually rumpled, with the exhausted look of a man who'd fought too many losing battles. He'd been the union rep for the hospital's paramedic staff for 15 years. Heard we have a situation, he said, then saw Maria's face. Hell. What did you do, kid? 20 minutes later, Maria sat in a smaller conference room while Ted read through the suspension notice. Freeman had left. Davidson had left. It was just her and Ted, and a stack of paperwork that might as well have been a prison sentence. They're serious about this, Ted said finally. Unauthorized equipment use, protocol violations, engaging with armed security. He looked up at her. Maria, even though you saved a life, you broke about 7 different rules. And with the Vitale connection, this isn't just going to blow over. So what happens now? Now? You go home. You don't come back until the investigation is complete. Could be a week. Could be a month. He rubbed his eyes. And I'll be honest with you, even if we fight this, even if we prove you acted in good faith, you might still lose your job. The hospital is scared. Scared of lawsuits, scared of the Vitales, scared of the publicity. Maria felt something crack inside her chest. This job wasn't glamorous. It didn't pay enough. But it was hers. It mattered. I couldn't just let her die, she whispered. I know, Ted's voice was gentle. But sometimes doing the right thing costs everything. Maria was packing her locker when she heard the commotion downstairs. Voices. Multiple sets of footsteps. The kind of disruption that made everyone in the hallway stop and turn toward the stairwell. She shoved her spare scrubs into her backpack and tried to ignore it. She had an hour to clear out her workspace before security escorted her off the premises. That was the deal. Get your things, turn in your badge, go home and wait. The footsteps got louder. Closer. Ma'am, you can't just, sir, please, you need to check in at the front desk. Maria looked up. Through the small window in the staff room door, she could see them. 6 men in dark suits moving through the hallway like sharks through water. Hospital security trailed behind them, useless and nervous. The lead man was built like a refrigerator. Broad shoulders, thick neck, cold eyes that swept the hallway with military precision. He stopped at the nurse's station, and Maria watched the head nurse's face go pale as she pointed toward the staff room. Toward Maria. No, 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 Maria muttered, but her feet were already moving. She grabbed her backpack and headed for the back exit, the one that led to the service elevator. She made it 3 steps before the door opened. The refrigerator man filled the doorway. Behind him, 2 others blocked any escape route. Maria found herself backing up until her shoulders hit the lockers. Maria Alvarez? His voice was surprisingly quiet, controlled. She nodded, not trusting her voice. You need to come with us. I don't need to do anything. The words came out steadier than she felt. Who are you? We work for the Vitali family. We have questions about the incident this afternoon. I already talked to hospital administration. They're not who he answered to. He stepped into the room, and the temperature seemed to drop 10 degrees. Mrs. Vitali wants to know who broke into her vehicle. Who put hands on her without permission. She was dying. That's not your call to make. Another man entered from behind, younger, but somehow more dangerous. He had a scar running through his left eyebrow and eyes that didn't blink enough. You assaulted private property. You touched a member of the Vitali family without authorization. Maria felt anger spark through her fear. I performed emergency medical care on a woman having a heart attack. That's my job. Your job, the refrigerator man said slowly, is whatever we say it is right now. Come with us. Quietly. For a moment, Maria considered screaming. The hallway outside was full of people. Security was right there, useless as they were. But something in the lead man's expression told her that screaming would only make this worse. Where are we going? Somewhere we can talk privately. They escorted her through the hallways like she was under arrest. Hospital staff stepped aside, eyes averted. No one met her gaze. No one offered help. The Vitali name had that effect, apparently. They took her to a service hallway on the 2nd floor, the kind of place where maintenance stored equipment and nobody came unless they had to. Concrete walls. Fluorescent lights that hummed and flickered. The refrigerator man positioned himself in front of the only exit while the others formed a loose semicircle around her. 6 of them. 1 of her. Maria set her backpack down slowly and faced them. If they were going to hurt her, running wouldn't help. Might as well look them in the eye. The security footage, Scar Eyebrow said, holding up his phone. The screen showed the scene from this afternoon. Different angle than the one Davidson had shown her, probably from the hospital's external cameras. That's you breaking the window. That's you putting your hands on Donna Rosa. That's me saving her life, Maria corrected. You broke into a private vehicle. The door was locked and she was dying. You had no authority. I had a duty, Maria's voice rose despite herself. I'm a paramedic. Someone was in cardiac arrest. Your boys were standing around yelling at people instead of helping. So yes, I broke the window. I pulled her out. I performed CPR. And she's alive because of it. The refrigerator man tilted his head slightly, studying her. You don't seem to understand the situation you're in. No, you don't understand. The fear was still there, coiled in her stomach, but anger was winning. I don't care who she is. I don't care who her son is. She's a human being who is dying, and everyone around her was too busy protecting their asses to actually help. Including you. Silence. One of the men in the back shifted uncomfortably. Scar Eyebrow's jaw tightened. You're calling us cowards? The refrigerator man's voice dropped even lower. I'm saying you were standing around while an old woman had a heart attack. What would you call it? Careful, he said softly. You're talking about men who've killed people for less. Maria's heart hammered against her ribs, but she held his gaze. Then you better make it quick, Because I'm getting tired of this conversation. For a long moment, nobody moved. The fluorescent lights hummed. Somewhere in the distance, a PA system called for a doctor. Then the refrigerator man smiled. It wasn't a nice smile. Lorenzo wants to meet you. Who? Lorenzo Vitali. Donna Rosa's son, he said it like everyone should know the name. He's been watching the security footage. He has questions. I already told you everything. You'll tell him. The man stepped aside, gesturing toward the exit. He's waiting upstairs. In his mother's room. Maria picked up her backpack. Her hands were shaking again, but she forced them steady. Fine, she said. Let's go. Rosa Vitali's hospital room was on the top floor. Private wing. The kind of place that didn't appear on regular hospital maps. The elevator ride felt like descending into deep water, pressure building, air getting thinner. The refrigerator man stood beside Maria, silent. The other men had dispersed, but she knew they were still close. Watching. The elevator doors opened onto a hallway that looked more like a luxury hotel than a hospital. Hardwood floors, art on the walls, and at the end of the corridor, 2 more guards flanked a door. They stepped aside as the refrigerator man approached, but their eyes tracked Maria like security cameras. He's inside, the man said. Be respectful. I'm always respectful, Maria replied, though her mouth was dry. He opened the door. The room was bigger than Maria's entire apartment. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the Chicago skyline, now painted gold by the late afternoon sun. Medical equipment hummed softly in the corner, top of the line, the kind that cost more per day than most people made in a month. And in the bed, propped up on pillows, was Rosa Vitali. Awake. Alert. An oxygen cannula in her nose, but her color was good. Much better than a few hours ago when she'd been gray and dying. But Maria barely noticed her. Because standing at the window, hands clasped behind his back, was the most dangerous-looking calm man she'd ever seen. Lorenzo Vitali. He was younger than she'd expected, maybe 40, maybe 45. Tall and lean in a charcoal suit that probably cost more than her car. Dark hair swept back from a face that could have been handsome if it wasn't so carefully controlled. Every line of his posture spoke of power. Not the loud, aggressive kind. The quiet kind. The kind that didn't need to raise its voice because everyone was already listening. He didn't turn around when Maria entered. Just kept staring out at the city. That's her? His voice was smooth. Educated. Nothing like what she'd expected. Yes, sir, the refrigerator man said from behind Maria. Leave us. Sir, protocol. I said leave us, still quiet, still calm. But something in his tone made the refrigerator man step back immediately. The door closed with a soft click. Maria stood alone in the room with Lorenzo Vitali and his mother. From the bed, Rosa made a soft sound. Lorenzo finally turned, and Maria got her first good look at his face. Sharp cheekbones, dark eyes that missed nothing, and an expression that gave away absolutely nothing. You're the paramedic, he said. Not a question. Yes. The one who broke my mother's car window. Yes. He studied her for a long moment. Maria forced herself to meet his gaze. She'd already been suspended. Already been threatened. She wasn't going to cower now. Lorenzo moved to a side table where someone had set up a laptop. He touched the keyboard, and a video began playing on the screen. Maria recognized it immediately, the security footage from outside the hospital. He watched in silence. Maria watched him. On screen, the black sedan jumped the curb. The bodyguards emerged, already shouting. The crowd formed, and then Maria appeared, running with a trauma bag, pushing past the guards' protests. Lorenzo's jaw tightened slightly. On screen, Maria swung the bag. Glass shattered. The guards shouted louder, but she ignored them, reaching through the broken window to unlock the door. Lorenzo's expression darkened, but he still didn't speak. The video continued. Maria pulling Rosa from the car. The guards standing frozen, useless. Maria beginning compressions, her whole body working to keep Rosa alive while the men her son paid to protect her just watched. The video ended. Lorenzo closed the laptop with deliberate care. When he looked up at Maria, his eyes were cold enough to burn. "My men," he said quietly, stood there and did nothing. Maria said nothing. This felt like a trap. "I pay them to protect my family. To think quickly. To act." His voice never rose above conversational level, but fury simmered beneath every word. "And when my mother was dying, they created a perimeter and yelled at civilians." He crossed the room toward Maria. She held her ground. "While you," he stopped a few feet away, "a woman they tried to intimidate, who had no obligation to risk anything, ran toward danger, broke through, did what needed to be done." Maria's throat felt tight. She was dying. Someone had to. Everyone else froze. Lorenzo's voice cut through hers like a blade. Sharp, but not directed at her. "You didn't." The shift in the room was almost physical. Rosa made another soft sound from the bed, almost like approval. Lorenzo turned back to the window, hands clasped behind his back again. "The hospital suspended you." "Yes. For saving my mother's life. For breaking protocol." "Protocol," he said the word like it tasted bad. "My men worried about protocol, while my mother's heart stopped. The hospital worries about protocol, while lawyers circle. And you," he glanced back at her. "You ignored protocol and kept her alive." Maria didn't know what to say. This wasn't the conversation she'd expected. The man she'd expected to threaten her was instead dissecting the cowardice of everyone around him. "Do you know who I am?" Lorenzo asked. "I know your name. I know what people say about you. And yet you're not trembling." "I was scared earlier," Maria admitted. "Your men made that clear. But I'm tired now. So if you're going to threaten me or hurt me, or whatever it is you brought me here to do, can we just get it over with?" For the first time, something almost like amusement flickered across Lorenzo's face. "I brought you here," he said, "to say thank you." Maria blinked. "What?" "You saved my mother's life. At risk to yourself." Expecting nothing in return, he moved closer, and Maria saw something in his eyes she hadn't expected. Respect. "That deserves gratitude, not threats. Your men. My men are idiots. And they'll be reminded of that." His voice hardened again. "But you're something different." From the bed, Rosa spoke for the first time, her voice weak but clear.
"Coraggiosa."
Lorenzo smiled slightly. "My mother says you're brave." "She's right." Lorenzo gestured to a chair near his mother's bed.
"Seat."
"Please." Maria hesitated, then sat. The chair was expensive, leather, probably Italian. Everything in this room cost more than she made in a year. "Tell me," Lorenzo said, leaning against the windowsill. "When you saw my mother's car, what did you think?" "I didn't think. I just reacted." "That's not true. Everyone thinks." Even in emergencies, his gaze was steady, analytical. "What went through your mind?" Maria considered lying, making herself sound heroic. But something about Lorenzo's eyes told her he'd know. "I thought someone was dying and everyone was standing around worrying about permission slips." A slight smile touched his lips. "Permission slips. Your men were armed. They were scared. And fear makes people stupid." She looked at Rosa, who was watching them with sharp, intelligent eyes. "I saw her through the window. I knew what cardiac arrest looks like. And I knew if I waited for someone to give me permission, she'd be dead." "So you didn't wait?" "No. Even though my men threatened you." "Especially because they threatened me." Maria felt anger rising again. "Someone's dying and you're worried about authority? About protocol? That's not protection. That's just," she struggled for the word, "cowardice dressed up in a suit." Lorenzo's expression didn't change, but something flickered in his eyes. Approval, maybe. Or recognition. "You have no idea what you walked into today," he said quietly. "My mother's car. My men. My family. You broke through a security perimeter designed to keep people exactly like you away. I'm a paramedic, not a threat. In my world, Everyone is a potential threat until proven otherwise. He moved to his mother's bedside, adjusting her blanket with surprising gentleness. But you proved yourself. The question is, why? Why what? Why risk it? You could have called 911 and walked away. Let someone else handle it. Kept your job, your safety, your comfortable distance. He looked back at her. Why did you have to be the one? Maria thought about her answer carefully. Because I could not be. Does that make sense? No, Lorenzo said. But he smiled slightly. But I understand it anyway. A knock at the door interrupted them. The refrigerator man entered, followed by two people Maria recognized, Davidson and another administrator, a woman named Patricia Stern from Hospital Legal. Davidson looked nervous. Patricia looked determined. Neither looked happy to see Lorenzo. Mr. Vitale, Patricia said, her voice professionally pleasant. We need to speak with Ms. Alvarez. Hospital business. Go ahead, Lorenzo said. Speak. Privately. My mother's room. My rules. Lorenzo didn't move. Say what you need to say. Patricia's smile tightened. She turned to Maria, pulling a document from her briefcase. Ms. Alvarez, we've reviewed the incident. While we appreciate your intentions, the fact remains that you violated multiple protocols. However, we're prepared to offer a resolution. She held out the document. Maria took it, scanning the dense legal text. It's a statement of acknowledgement, Davidson explained. You admit that you acted outside proper procedures, that you understand the risks you created, and that the hospital bears no liability for your actions. Sign it, and we can move forward with a reduced suspension. 2 weeks instead of indefinite. Maria read it again. Buried in the corporate language was a clear message. Admit you were wrong.
Take the blame.
Protect us. You want me to say I made a mistake? We want you to acknowledge that proper procedure exists for a reason, Patricia said smoothly. This protects everyone. You, the hospital, even Mr. Vitale and his family. It closes the door on potential litigation. Litigation from who? Patricia glanced at Lorenzo. From anyone who might claim negligence or improper care. She means from me, Lorenzo said flatly. They're afraid I'm going to sue because you touched my mother. We're protecting all parties. You're protecting yourselves. Lorenzo's voice stayed calm, but the temperature in the room dropped. And you're asking her to lie to do it. It's not lying, Davidson started. She saved my mother's life. That's not a mistake. Lorenzo moved closer to Maria's chair. That's the opposite of a mistake. Maria stared at the document. 2 weeks suspension versus indefinite. 2 weeks versus possibly losing her job entirely. It would be so easy to just sign. To make this go away. She thought about her daughter, Sophia. 8 years old. The electricity bill. Rent due in 2 weeks. The student loans from her paramedic training that never seemed to get smaller. Sign the paper. Keep your head down. Survive. But then she looked at Rosa Vitale, alive and breathing in that hospital bed. She thought about the feel of compressions under her hands. The moment Rosa's heart started beating again. No, Maria said quietly. Ms. Alvarez, Patricia began. No, louder now. Maria set the document on the side table. I didn't make a mistake. I didn't act negligently. I did my job. If you want to punish me for that, fine. But I'm not going to sign something that says saving a life was wrong. Davidson's face went pale. Maria, be reasonable. I am being reasonable. You're asking me to lie. I won't. You're throwing away your career. Then I guess that's what I'm doing. Maria stood, her legs steadier than she expected. But I'm not signing that. Patricia gathered her documents, lips pressed into a thin line. This is a serious mistake, Ms. Alvarez. Without this acknowledgement, the hospital has no choice but to extend your suspension pending a full investigation. That could take months. You could lose your job permanently. I understand.
Do you?
Do you understand you're sacrificing everything over pride? It's not pride. Maria's voice didn't waver. It's principle. Patricia and Davidson left, their footsteps sharp and angry in the hallway. The door closed behind them. Silence filled the room. Then Rosa spoke again, her voice stronger now.
Spine di ferro.
Maria looked at Lorenzo, questioning. Spine of iron, he translated. His expression was unreadable. My mother likes you. I just cost myself my job. You kept your integrity. Lorenzo studied her with new intensity. That's rarer than you'd think. In any world. 3 weeks later, Maria sat outside conference room B on the 4th floor, waiting for her professional execution. The disciplinary hearing had been scheduled for 2 p.m. It was now 2:17, and nobody had called her in yet. Through the frosted glass door, she could see shadows moving, shapes of people who would decide whether she still had a career. Her union rep, Ted, sat beside her, reviewing notes he'd probably memorized days ago. He looked tired. They both were. Whatever happens, he said quietly, you fought the good fight. That's what you say when someone's about to lose. Maria. The door opened. Patricia Stern stood there, clipboard in hand, expression professionally neutral. Ms. Alvarez. Mr. Kowalski. The board is ready for you. The conference room was set up like a courtroom. A long table at the front where 5 people sat, Davidson, Patricia, 2 other administrators Maria didn't know, and Dr. Raymond Chen, the hospital's chief medical officer. Chairs for Maria and Ted faced them. A recorder sat on the table, red light already blinking. This was official. This was real. Please sit, Patricia said. Maria sat. Ted sat beside her. The board stared at them with expressions ranging from uncomfortable to hostile. Davidson cleared his throat. This hearing is to review the incident of September 15th involving Maria Alvarez, paramedic, employee number 4782. Ms. Alvarez, you've been given copies of the relevant hospital policies and safety protocols. Yes, Maria said. And you understand the charges being brought? Yes. Patricia took over, reading from her notes with the efficiency of a prosecutor. On September 15th at approximately 1:47 p.m., you removed hospital equipment without authorization. At 1:49 p.m., you engaged with armed private security personnel despite clear warnings to stay back. At 1:50 p.m., you damaged private property valued at over $3,000. At 1:51 p.m., you administered emergency medical care in an unsecured, potentially dangerous environment without backup or proper authorization. She looked up. Do you dispute any of these facts? No, Maria said. But the facts are not in question, Patricia continued. The question is whether your actions constitute gross negligence and violation of hospital safety protocols sufficient to warrant termination of employment. She saved a woman's life, Ted interjected. That's not negligence. She endangered herself, hospital staff, and bystanders. One of the administrators cut in. A man Maria didn't know, with silver hair and cold eyes. Emergency protocols exist for a reason. They protect everyone. Those protocols assume you have time, Maria said. The woman was dying. You didn't know that for certain, Davidson said. You saw movement in a car and made assumptions. I'm trained to recognize cardiac arrest. I saw the symptoms. Through a tinted window? From across the street? Silver hair leaned forward. Ms. Alvarez, you saw what you wanted to see. You made a reckless decision that could have resulted in injury or death, yours or someone else's. But it didn't, Ted said firmly. Mrs. Vitale is alive because Maria acted. That's luck, not good judgment, Patricia said. And this hospital cannot base its policies on luck. Dr. Chen spoke for the first time. I've reviewed the medical records. Mrs. Vitale experienced severe cardiac arrest. Her condition was critical. Without immediate intervention, she would have died. He looked at Maria. Your CPR was competent, possibly life-saving. Hope flickered in Maria's chest. However, Dr. Chen continued, competent medical care delivered in violation of safety protocols is still a violation. We cannot overlook the rules, even when the outcome is positive. Otherwise, where does it end? The hope died. Ms. Alvarez, Davidson said, we want to be fair. If you're willing to acknowledge that your actions, while well-intentioned, were inappropriate and dangerous, we can consider a formal reprimand and mandatory retraining instead of termination. You want me to say I was wrong to save her life. We want you to say you should have followed procedure. Procedure would have killed her. That's not for you to decide. Silverhair's voice rose. You're a paramedic, not a doctor. You don't make calls about when to break the rules. The door opened. Everyone turned. A man in a dark suit entered, not hospital security, not administration. One of Lorenzo's men. The refrigerator man. This is a closed hearing. Patricia started. Not anymore, said a voice from the hallway. Lorenzo Vitali walked in. The room went silent. Absolutely silent. Even the air seemed to stop moving. Lorenzo was dressed in a navy suit, crisp white shirt, no tie. He looked like he owned the building. Maybe he did, for all Maria knew. His presence filled the conference room like water filling a pool, absolute and unavoidable. Mr. Vitali, Patricia said, recovering first. This is a private hospital matter. My mother is the matter. Lorenzo moved to the front of the room, ignoring the board's shocked faces. You're discussing whether to punish the woman who saved her life. That makes it my business. We appreciate your mother's recovery, Davidson said carefully, but employee discipline is internal. She saved my mother's life. Lorenzo's voice was quiet, but it cut through Davidson's like a razor. If she hadn't acted, if she'd waited for your protocols and your procedures and your authorization, you'd be planning a funeral. My mother would be dead. He turned to face the board directly. And you want to fire her for it. We want accountability, Silverhair said, trying to sound authoritative and failing. Rules exist. Rules exist to protect people. She protected someone. She did exactly what your rules are supposed to accomplish. Lorenzo pulled out his phone, tapped it, then set it on the table. That's Dr. Michael Reeves, cardiac specialist at Northwestern. He reviewed the case at my request. A man's voice came through the speaker. The patient experienced sudden cardiac arrest. Time to intervention is critical in such cases. Every minute without CPR decreases survival by 10%. Ms. Alvarez's immediate action provided circulation during the critical window. Her intervention is the reason the patient survived. Lorenzo tapped the phone again. Another voice, Dr. Sarah Chun, emergency medicine. The paramedic's actions were medically sound and appropriate for the circumstances. Her decision to act quickly likely prevented brain damage or death. A third voice, paramedic training emphasizes the golden minutes. This responder exemplified that training. Lorenzo pocketed his phone. 3 medical experts, all saying the same thing. She saved my mother's life. He looked at each board member in turn. And you're sitting here trying to punish her for it. The board exchanged glances. No one spoke. So let me be very clear, Lorenzo continued. If you fire Maria Alvarez, I will make it my personal mission to ensure everyone knows that Chicago Memorial punishes heroes and protects bureaucrats. Every newspaper, every news station, every social media platform. Mr. Vitali, Patricia began. I'm not finished. His voice dropped lower. More dangerous. You'll also lose the Vitali Foundation's annual donation. That's $2 million. Gone. The room went even quieter if that was possible. Lorenzo smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes.
Now.
Shall we reconsider this hearing? The board deliberated for exactly 4 minutes. Maria could hear muffled voices through the conference room door, heated at first, then quieter, then resigned. When they called her and Ted back in, Davidson wouldn't meet her eyes. Patricia stood, reading from a prepared statement that she'd clearly just written. After careful review and consideration of all factors, including expert medical testimony, the board has decided to overturn Ms. Alvarez's suspension effective immediately. Maria felt Ted exhale beside her. Furthermore, Patricia continued, voice tight, the hospital recognizes that Ms. Alvarez acted in accordance with her medical training and the fundamental principles of emergency care. Her actions, while unconventional, resulted in the preservation of life. Therefore, no disciplinary action will be taken. Dr. Chen added, We will, however, be reviewing our emergency response protocols to ensure that staff can act decisively in similar situations without fear of repercussion. Davidson finally looked up. You're reinstated, Maria. Full pay for the time you were suspended. You can return to work Monday. That's it? Maria asked. The words felt too simple after 3 weeks of hell. That's it, Patricia said, though her expression suggested she'd swallowed glass. This hearing is concluded. Lorenzo had already left. Maria didn't see him go. One moment he was there, the next he wasn't. Like a ghost or a storm that had passed. Outside the conference room, Ted pulled her into a brief, unprofessional hug. You did it, kid. You actually did it. Lorenzo did it, Maria corrected. You did it first. You saved his mother, Ted grinned. Though I gotta say, watching him walk in there? That was the most terrifying thing I've seen in 20 years of union work. Remind me never to get on that man's bad side. They walked toward the elevator together, Ted chattering about procedural changes and how he'd draft a memo about this case for other union reps. Maria only half listened. She felt hollow, like someone had scooped out her insides and forgotten to replace them. She should feel relieved, victorious, even. Instead, she just felt tired. The elevator doors opened. She said goodbye to Ted and headed toward the parking garage. Her car was on level 3, a 10-year-old Honda with a check engine light that had been on for 6 months. She was fumbling for her keys when she heard footsteps behind her. She turned. Lorenzo stood 10 feet away, hands in his pockets, looking entirely too comfortable in a parking garage. No bodyguards visible, though Maria suspected they were close. Men like Lorenzo didn't go anywhere alone. Congratulations, he said. Thank you for what you did in there. I told the truth. They couldn't argue with that. He moved closer, footsteps echoing off concrete. Though the donation threat helped. $2 million is a lot of truth. He smiled slightly. It's not about the money. It's about making them understand that courage has value, even when it's inconvenient. Maria leaned against her car. Your men, the ones from that day, are they? Reassigned, demoted. Being reminded what their job actually is, Lorenzo's expression hardened. They froze when my mother needed them. They were too worried about protocols and permissions and whether they'd get in trouble. Like everyone else. They were scared. So were you. But you acted anyway. He studied her with that same intense focus from the hospital room. That's the difference. Fear is inevitable. Cowardice is a choice. Maria didn't know what to say to that. Lorenzo pulled an envelope from his jacket pocket. I have something for you. I don't want money, Maria said quickly. It's not money, he held it out. It's an offer. She took the envelope, opened it. Inside was a letter on heavy cream stationery. She scanned it quickly, then read it again more slowly because the words didn't make sense the first time. It was from Northwestern University's medical school. A letter of acceptance, not for her, but a placeholder with her name typed in. And underneath, a financial guarantee. Full tuition. For years. Books, fees, stipend for living expenses. Everything. I don't understand, Maria said. You're a paramedic. A good one. But you could be more. Lorenzo's voice was matter-of-fact. You have the instincts, the courage, the skill. You should be a doctor. I can't afford. You can now. The Vitali Foundation will cover everything. Full ride. No strings attached. Maria stared at the letter. Her hands were shaking. Why? Because you did what my trained men would do. You risked everything to save someone you didn't know. That kind of person, he paused, choosing his words carefully, deserves a future, not punishment. This is too much. It's not enough, Lorenzo's voice was firm. My mother is alive because you acted. What's the value of that? What's the price of someone's life? I don't want to owe you anything, Maria said quietly. The fear was back, different this time. Not fear of violence, but fear of debt, of obligation, of being pulled into a world she didn't understand. You won't owe me anything, Lorenzo said.
No favors. No obligations.
You go to medical school, you become a doctor, you save more lives. That's the deal. People don't just do things for free. Especially people like you. People like me? He raised an eyebrow. You know what I mean. Yes, I do. He moved closer, his expression serious. You're right. People in my world don't do things for free. Everything has a price. Everyone has an angle. He gestured to the letter. But this isn't about my world. This is about yours. You saved my mother because it was the right thing to do. I'm helping you because it's the right thing to do. That's simple? That's simple. He turned to leave, then paused. My mother says you have a spine of iron. She's rarely wrong about people. Don't waste that spine working a job that doesn't challenge you. Maria looked at the letter again. Medical school. For years. A real future. Not just scraping by month to month. I need to think about it, she said. Of course, Lorenzo pulled out a business card, handed it to her. Call that number when you decide. Or don't. The choice is yours, Maria. It always was. He walked away, footsteps fading into the parking garage shadows. Maria stood alone, holding a letter that might change her life, wondering if accepting it would save her or trap her. 5 weeks after the hearing, Maria returned to Chicago Memorial's ambulance bay at 6:47 a.m. for the start of her shift. The sunrise painted the city in shades of orange and pink. The same bench where she'd eaten lunch that day still sat outside the entrance. The same coffee cart on the corner sold the same burnt coffee. Everything looked the same. But it wasn't. Alvarez. Jake Morrison, one of the senior paramedics, waved from the equipment room. Welcome back. You missed the excitement. We had a 3-car pileup on the expressway last week. Sorry I missed it, Maria said, though she wasn't. Jake grinned. I saw the video. The window thing. That was pretty badass. Word had spread.
Of course it had.
In the weeks she'd been suspended, the footage had gone semi-viral. Not huge, but enough. Local news had picked it up. Paramedic defies armed guards to save life. The comment section had been a war zone of opinions, but the story stuck. More importantly, whispers had started circulating about who she'd saved. Not publicly. The Vitali family didn't do publicity, but in the quiet spaces between shifts, people talked. The paramedic who saved the Donna. The woman who broke through Vitali security and lived to tell about it. Her supervisor, Karen Freeman, approached with a clipboard. Her expression was different now. Respectful. Maybe even a little wary.
Maria.
Good to have you back. You're on rotation with Unit 7 today. Morrison and Shun, she paused. And there's a commendation in your file now. Exemplary care under pressure. It'll help when you're up for promotion. Thank you, Maria said.
No.
Thank you, Karen's voice softened. What you did, not many people would have. I'm sorry we made it complicated. Maria nodded. No point rehashing it now. The shift was routine. A diabetic emergency. A fall in a nursing home. A kid with a broken arm from skateboarding. Normal calls, normal work, but Maria felt different doing it. Stronger. More certain. Like something inside her had crystallized during those 3 weeks of uncertainty. She'd made her decision about Lorenzo's offer. At 3 p.m., during her break, she called the number on his business card. A woman answered, professional, efficient. This is Maria Alvarez. I'd like to speak with Mr. Vitali. One moment. Lorenzo's voice came on the line. Maria, you've decided.
Yes.
I'm accepting. The medical school offer. All of it, she took a breath. But I have conditions.
A pause.
Then, I'm listening. I work my shifts here until the semester starts. I don't want special treatment. And when I'm in medical school, I'm just another student. No Vitali Foundation mentions, no publicity, nothing that makes me stand out. Agreed. And one more thing. I want to work in underserved communities when I graduate. Places where people can't afford fancy hospitals. That's non-negotiable. Lorenzo was quiet for a moment. Then, my mother would like that. So would I. Then we have a deal. We have a deal. She could hear the smile in his voice. Congratulations, Dr. Alvarez. Eventually. Not yet, Maria said. I've got 4 years first. You'll make it. People with spines of iron usually do. That evening, Maria finished her shift at 7 p.m. The sun was setting again, the city turning golden. She walked toward the parking garage, exhausted but satisfied. A sleek black car sat at the curb. Not blocking traffic, not obvious, just
There.
she recognized it, or one like it. Lorenzo's men, keeping a quiet distance. She'd noticed them a few times over the past weeks. Never intrusive, never approaching, just present. A shadow that meant safety instead of threat. She nodded toward the car. Couldn't tell if they saw her, but it felt right to acknowledge them. Her phone buzzed. A text from her daughter Sophia's school. Pizza party Friday for good behavior. Another text from her landlord. Rent received. Thank you. Small things. Normal things. Life continuing forward. As she reached her Honda, Maria looked back at the hospital. The building where she'd been suspended for doing her job. Where she'd been vindicated. Where she'd continue working until medical school started. She thought about that moment, the black sedan, the dying woman, the choice to act. It had cost her so much fear, so many sleepless nights. But it had also given her something invaluable. It had shown her who she really was. Not someone who waited for permission. Not someone who froze when things got hard. Someone who acted. Someone who broke through barriers, literal and otherwise, when lives were on the line. Somewhere across the city, in a private estate or a quiet restaurant or wherever men like Lorenzo Vitali spent their evenings, she knew her name was spoken differently now. Not as a problem or a threat or a pawn, but as the woman who had defied fear itself to save their queen. Maria unlocked her car and got in. She had 4 more months of paramedic work ahead of her. Then medical school. Then a career saving lives in places where people needed her most. She started the engine, pulled out of the parking space, and drove toward home. Behind her, the black car waited a moment longer, then pulled smoothly into traffic, maintaining its protective distance. Maria Alvarez had a spine of iron, and the world, both the one she knew and the one she'd glimpsed, had finally recognized it.